What's up? Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie. This is episode number 406, also known as 406. My name's Steve. I'm one of the co-hosts, and as always, I'm joined by...
Your call has been, I don't know, my name's Ron.
I thought you hung up on us for a second.
And I'm John, a Danish actor playing an American policeman. And this is the way that we talk.
Interesting.
Yeah, I like that. I like that choice.
Jesus is my favorite person. I follow the teachings of Jesus Christ. Like all good Americans.
Yes.
Is that how he talks?
Yes.
I don't feel like that. I don't feel like that stood out. I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
I have like that joke, you know, that joke that I put on like recently where like when I was in London, like there's like a noticeable, if you really pay attention to the cadence, it's very strange. It's not an American cadence. It's like just not here. That's all it sounds like. Just not where you were before and just not here. It's just like, can it be Canadian? I can't figure out what it is. I'm like, what is this thing that they're doing?
Interesting. Okay, we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
So welcome back to the pod. This episode, in a moment here, we're going to get into my pick for required viewing, which is God is a Bullet. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the Oscars, a little, I guess, recap briefly. And then we'll get into a conversation about the start of a new series on Apple TV Plus called Manhunt that just came out with its first 2 episodes this last week. So, let's get started. Anything else you guys want to mention before we get into the required viewing, or anything on your mind?
Oh, actually, yeah, there's a bit of follow-up that I think we need to address.
Okay.
One is just Dune business. I'm now reading Dune Messiah.
Oh,
I'll be all in the know about what's supposed to be in the next movie in like 6 years or whenever we get that. I can just tell you, if you're wondering, I've heard this book gets crazy. There's, opinions about the Dune books are so all over the place when you ask people. And so many people say, oh yeah, the second one's pretty good or pretty interesting. And then other people say, oh, the books are all horrible. And the second one is the craziest one. I don't know. I haven't gotten into the book yet, but I wanted to tell you, if you're looking for a little bit of crazy, in the introduction, Brian Herbert, Frank Herbert's son, guy who created Dune, and his son writes introductions to a lot of his books, and also has written and co-written books in like carrying on the stories. In the introduction, he compares JFK to Adolf Hitler, and claims that if his dad had turned to politics instead of literature, he would have been one of our greatest presidents. But that he's actually glad that instead he wrote science fiction novels rather than like curing America of all of its disabilities. So that's just the introduction. That's just 5 pages, and that's not even the book yet. So it might be crazy. But Ronald, the other part of our Dune report, I wanted to ask you, now that you've seen Dune Part II, what part do you think was the part that got Steve dancing in his seat and moving forward and leaning on his hands and everything? What scene, what moment, what do you think was the part that had Steve beside himself?
Yeah, I'm thinking about 2 parts, but I'm thinking it has to be the worm, right? Like, or the... It has to be the worm.
When Timothy Chalamet does the worm, when he jumps on the ground and does the worm. Yes, that's right.
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah. You got it.
No, when he gets atop the worm.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's filmed like the way that like Superman first starts flying, like when, or like when Spider-Man learns how to first swing for the first time. Like it's just such a weirdly visceral. I can't wait. This, out of the 2 movies, I think I'm more excited to listen to this one at home. Like, it's way more sounds. Like there's very little lulls in between. Like it's all action. It's all great sound.
It's a broader spectrum of stuff too. It still has the quiet moments, but it's got also craziness and
tons of action,
like a little bit of more time spent in kind of like the alternate world, sort of the Harkonnen, family seat. Is it Gaidi Prime or Gaidi Prime?
Getty Prime, yeah.
Gaidi Prime,
I don't know how I handled Christopher Walken just talking in that world. Arrakis.
I thought he was going to bump me more than he did. He still had a
I
couple of
loved
words
it.
where but he still has a couple of Bronx moments, but I thought he was going to
I
bump me
thought it was
way more
great.
than he did. But I thought he
All
was
right,
like
right.
good. I think that it's like he's one of those actors who's going to. I feel like the same risk is run if you bring like Nicolas Cage into a movie.
Oh yeah, yeah.
There's going to be the possibility of brilliance, but there's also going to be a couple of moments where you're like, yeah, no one would say that word that way except for Nicolas Cage. And there's something kind of modern
Right.
about those actors. And so Christopher Walken does feel kind of modern, but we're supposed to believe this is humanity of the future. So I just like to believe that there's people now that will continue to talk like Christopher Walken after he passes. And so in the
Yes.
year 10,000, they've become like a group of people that are now this imperial family.
Look, this is why I think that's so incredible. And I think that maybe Denny kind of realizes too. It's crazy that people speak with a British accent in the sky. That doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? So like, why can't people also have Bronx accents? Like why would there ever be someone
Right.
speaking with, it's a little strange. It's always
You know
been
what they should have
strange.
done is should have had Florence Pugh speaking with the same like do a Christopher Walken impression
Oh,
the
that would
same
be
way that
incredible.
Austin Butler was doing a Stellan Skarsgård impression because he really was. He
He
was
was,
talking like this, and I never really thought about how Stellan
Yeah.
Skarsgård talks
it's a
before.
Yes.
great,
100%.
it's
Like,
a
oh God, he's
great
Popeye, and I
impression of
didn't
him.
realize it.
He's Popeye. He's Popeye. It was a great impression. Like it was so good that I was like, oh, he could be related to him.
That said, though, he did slip into Elvis like once or
Oh yeah,
twice.
He
he
did.
said "Mama Baby" at that one point, but then I was like, wait a minute, that's weird.
I'll never forget when he slayed that man, and everybody clapped, and he said, "Thank you very much," and he
I
just,
know.
just
And then when they
pointed.
said Fade Routha has left the building, it's like, okay, come on, guys, we get it. We're leaning into
that
this now.
that movie was out of this world. Like I really had a good time watching Dune with you guys, and whenever the it comes home, looking forward to watching it with you again. But like,
Yeah, man.
man, this was exciting. It just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like it just the action, the emotion of it, it just it was great. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And I like the shifts in color. Like there was like that when they were in this world that kind of created this, was it manufactured light? Was that supposed to be
Or
why
it's
it looked?
It
supposed to
was
be just different sunlight,
this different sun. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, like a different side. Oh, that was beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
great moment.
motivated. It was like made to look very like the kind, almost like a Zack Snyder sort of visual
Yeah,
design aesthetic, but then like motivated by the idea of on this planet, this is how it would appear to you, So that's just kind of interesting.
Even a cool idea, like when they have fireworks going off, it's like an ink blot
Yeah,
exploding. Like
yeah.
that shit was so cool, man.
yeah.
Denis Villeneuve, Quentin
The silent floating
Tarantino.
down. I didn't mean to interrupt, but just another weird
Oh,
touch was like people silently floating rather than having like
yeah,
jetpacks that make a lot of noise. This
yeah.
weird, eerie
Just
kind of slow floating.
um,
Yeah.
Quentin Tarantino, Denis, and I'd say Christopher Nolan are in like this like fuck you kind of way of making movies, like where they're like, I'm gonna make a scene that no one can replicate. It's like I've been seeing that more with these three directors. Like I love the dialogue driven stuff that Quentin does that I don't feel like can be replicated. I love the like. I was thinking about that backward scene in Tenet. Like I didn't love that movie,
Yeah.
but I've never seen anything like it. You know what I mean? It's just
Oh no!
like
So even if
it's
you
like
like, I feel like even Christopher Nolan haters uh, are always curious about like exactly what they hate about the new one, and so they
yeah.
have to check it out because it's not. It's he has a concept. This actually feels like a segue into Oscar talk, but we
Why
could.
don't we do that? That's
Yeah.
Yeah,
fine.
you
It's
want to
fine.
just do it and then
Yeah,
do
let's stay with
the quiet?
Oscars.
I mean,
Yeah.
it seems right that Christopher Nolan has an Oscar for directing movies at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
It seems right that this is the movie that was the one that kind of broke the average or the five-way tie or whatever it could have been in your heart or your mind with some of these great movies that were up against each other this year.
Yeah.
So this felt like an interesting year for me in that I was like, I couldn't really argue with any of the wins. And yet there were favorites maybe I had that I had hoped for that didn't win,
Me
but it
too.
wasn't like, and I didn't see that much amongst like reasonable, even-keeled people. I didn't see that much crazy division about how the awards went. There was a lot around. It seems like Emma Stone had the unenviable position of a lot of people thinking this was Lily Gladstone's year.
Right.
Yeah.
And you almost see it on her face for a second, like, oh, this is more complicated than if I didn't win. But I feel
Yeah.
like
Right.
a lot of people are also coming out saying, no, she deserved it because she was great. And a lot of people even before this were saying it's a shame that Emma Stone is so good in Poor Things because they wanted it to be Lily Gladstone's year.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I had personal favorites that didn't win, but more so than in almost any ceremony I can think of, there were so many wins where I was like, oh, cool, that one. Oh, that's a good win for that, And I don't know if I would have picked an Oppenheimer sweep for my personal choices. When I looked at who won in each category, I didn't have any problem with it. I don't know. It was almost less interesting because of how much the awards were like, oh, that's fine. There's a lot of deserving movies this year.
Right.
Anyway, what did you guys think?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good show. Like the production itself is always something like beyond who wins. Like
Of
I
course,
like to watch and kind of like have feelings about because there's so many elements that people look forward to. Something that really has always bothered me and continues really to because it's kind of like hit or miss, or they don't really do it for every category, or especially the ones that you would think they should. But like the clips for especially for the acting categories, like I'm a fan of clips, and
Yeah.
I feel like
Oh, yeah.
the approach to this year, like having the past winners come, was a really cool thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and some of their conversation with the nominees felt really like genuine and like really great, or
yeah.
very funny, like the Nicolas Cage, the Paul Giamatti one.
That was like my
Or
favorite moment of the whole night. Those two
right,
guys
like you
interacting.
can't replicate, like you want that kind of thing when you get that kind of talent involved. Or like Rockwell to Downey, you could tell there were relationships happening in some of these deliveries, but some just felt very stale, very empty. Like, what's the cue card say? I can't really, you know what I mean? Like it was just kind of awkward.
Yeah.
So like that's something I wish they would kind of bring back and consistently have clips during the acting categories. But overall, I thought the show was like probably one of the more streamlined, clean shows in a while. Like a lot, like there was really not a lot that didn't work. Like hard stop didn't work. A lot of the jokes were pretty funny. I think the I'm Just Ken performance, honestly, I feel like that's like an all-time Oscar thing at this point. Like
one of the most confident things I've seen an actor do at an Oscar ceremony. Like when an actor who's up for an award has to get up and like perform, it can be sort of awkward. I feel like there was something, I mean, like everybody, this seems to be like, a 4-quadrant moment. Everybody sort of agrees that Ryan Gosling has like, that we like funny Gosling. And when he can lean into funny, and the fact that he played it so straight.
And everybody there was into it. Like everybody was standing, they do this sing along as he walks past Emma, and like it's just that stuff was like it was just infectious. Like you want that kind of energy.
Absolutely.
And you could tell that like that was a moment for the broadcast. But yeah, like overall that was all great. I really like John Mulaney's little thing he did where he basically recapped Field of Dreams instead of introducing his category. I would love to see him have a shot at hosting the Oscars. I think he'd be great.
Did that feel like his audition or something?
It really did. But yeah, the winners, I agree with you. Like, I don't, there's not really something that won that I felt like, oh, that's crazy. Like that's honest. You know what? I'll say the only thing, and I can't really speak fully to it because I didn't actually see The Boy and the Heron, but I was shocked that Spider-Verse didn't win. Not shocked. I knew that Boy and the Heron had won a lot of other awards, but
those Ghibli movies, man.
I know. It's like there's a I get it. Like it didn't. That's why I'm saying the shocked is not the right word, but I was kind of surprised that actually played through, for that category. But yeah, overall, otherwise, I feel like it was a pretty like just reward show. Like I felt like everything felt about right to me.
Yeah.
What about you, Ronald?
I think, man, you gotta respect the Mickey Mouse Club to Stardom pipeline that exists. I think that there's like a lot of like forgetting that he comes from. He's been doing this for a very long time. He's a showbiz kid. So like it's like I think that people are just discovering.
He's like a trained professional.
Yes, and has been doing it for decades. So like the version of him that we're seeing, I've known him for. I mean, I'm a Mickey Mouse Club guy. I mean, but
Yeah.
seeing this happen the
If
way
you
they
were, I
did,
feel like you'd refer to it as MMC, but I'm
Yeah.
just,
am-
I'm gonna back up. I'm just gonna
that
back up.
look. Are we getting into the newer one when they started calling MMC?
Same
Why?
transition.
There's a difference. There's a difference. But yeah, I totally get you, man. Like there's like this culture that I guess knew about him forever. That and I love that people are starting it because we knew that he was funny for a long time. It felt like the worst kept secret ever. And now seeing Barbie become this like new way to people for people to discover him is really cool. Shout out to Godzilla -1. Oh my God. I think that,
Yeah, it's a good
you
one.
know, I'm always an advocate for Asian cinema, Asian representation. And it just it feels like it's happening more and more and more. You know, Past Lives didn't win anything, but at least it was nominated. You know, that to just be like, I- yeah, that's really cool. American Fiction getting that best was that adapted script? Best adapted
Best
script?
adapted, yeah, because it's a
Yeah.
609.
Shout out to Cord. It's just and his speech. I mean, that's another thing, man. Like
Yeah, he had a good moment too.
this feels like the wedding version of man. I have this theory about weddings. Weddings aren't for the people that get married, and for everybody else. You kind of realize that when you're there, you're just like, the people are everybody's happy, but there's something about everybody else that's like, oh, I'm consuming these things that I don't necessarily have to pay for. It's
Oh
neither
yeah,
here
yeah,
nor
yeah. No,
there.
if you're
You
throwing
know
the
what I mean? It's
wedding,
for
you're much
everybody
more
else.
concerned about how everybody else is doing. If you're at the
Yes.
wedding, you're kind of it's an excuse to sort of cut loose.
Yes. This feels like the most mainstream year for the Oscars, and I'm loving it. And it's all because of Barbenheimer, but mostly, let's be honest, because of Barbie. There's something about the way that this was done, the pedigree of it, Greta Gerwig doing what she did in the way that she did it.
And she and Noah Baumbach obviously writing a very intelligent
Yeah.
script that contained all this stuff. You know what I mean? That like
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It's
that made
accessible.
it work. When people talk about
Yeah.
that movie clicking, there's some conceptual framework that was just really smart.
It's
That
doing a
they
lot of magic tricks. Doing a lot of magic tricks, and I think that's just you know, how it is writing a script, man. Like the fact that they did this the way that they did it is nuts.
It's like they cracked it.
Yeah, they cracked the code. They cracked the
Yeah.
code, and from everything from Frances Ha to this, like, I knew that she was capable of it. It's cool to see it happen, and I still need to see Emma Stone's movie. I still haven't seen it. I need to sit down with it. My wife tried to start it up, turn it off immediately. She could. Anything that gets a little too like artsy, she gets a little like she likes artsy, but there's certain kinds of artsy that she's just like mutilated faces, and she's like, I'm out. Don't anything that look nope. She she actually did it, and then she reached out. She's like, "Look, I tried to start this up."
She spins her hand around. And then,
She was like, "Can I play the first 30 seconds for you?" She played it. She went, "Ugh," and then turned it off. And she's like, "I can't."
Especially if she's not too big on Emma Stone, which you've confessed to me.
Yeah.
So
I'm
it's
gonna
like you have to sort of be hooked into the idea of like I'm going to take this crazy ride. But also, if you're a Yorgos Lanthimos fan, you already know this is kind of like his version of a kind of fable fairy tale kind of feel. So it's going to be stylized plus stylized. You know what I mean? So yeah,
for sure.
It's a big ask. If that's going to be the thing that bothers you, it's like a lot of the movie is the style, I would say. But that's why you notice a lot of the awards it won were design and costume, and I think that it deserves that. Like if Oppenheimer's going to sweep, Poor Things kind of deserves to be noticed for the things it got noticed for. Certain things just made me feel good. It's I didn't realize how good I would feel to see Killian get one, but just he's been so good in so many things.
Yeah.
And such a unique style of acting. And then you get to have that moment of realizing, oh yeah, Robert Downey Jr. didn't have one yet, right? Like this is it. This is the first.
It's
Like that's
wild
crazy. So it's like a great movie for him to have had that. Like this isn't the total what? That's what he won for? But it is a little bit of a really, it took this long for him to win. But when you think about his career, this is kind of this is the shoe-in, the closest to a shoe-in role, I think, that he's had for all the things he's been
Yeah,
good in.
there's been this narrative there that like Ryan Gosling was gonna like charm everybody's pants off and then get a little further along. And then Robert Downey Jr. opened his mouth and kind of shut that down.
Yeah.
I'd like to believe that I'm just Ken created this like symmetry to it. Like,
I think it did.
He really did. It's easy to look at somebody on screen and be like, man, that guy's charismatic, but does it transfer to, IRL? And to see it happen the way that it did was like everybody kind of shined. And even that Batman moment, man, that Arnold Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito, and Michael Keaton moment.
Yeah, that was great.
Oh,
My impression is that was a Danny DeVito pitch. I heard Michael Keaton talking about it in an interview, and I don't know whose idea it was, but he thought he was just doing the other thing. And he was like already leaving, heading out. And then they grabbed him and were like, we want you to do this other thing. And then he was like, what can I do quick? So he thought of like the ascot. He was like, if I'm going to be Bruce, I need to have like an ascot, which was
that's
perfect.
so good.
And then he was debating whether he should be talking to somebody next to him and then kind of turn and brush off the guys. But they said, no, the dead stare is what they wanted to do. But it was just cool hearing how improvised that gag was. And if it is indeed Danny DeVito's idea, it's hilarious that like the setup is him coming out there and then saying, there he is. That shit cracked me up. It was so silly.
Yes.
And even the fact that wasn't the Batman that Arnie fought.
Yes.
It made
Just
me
play
think,
along with it. Yeah.
but it made me think, does Arnold remember?
Yeah. Does he remember that movie?
Do any of
And he
these
called him a
three
son
men
of a
remember
bitch.
who was
I
in
thought
what
that was-
movie?
He did.
It's like son of a bitch.
No, I love, and the fact that he's like, he's got a lot of nerve. That's so silly, but that was
It's
was
so
a fun
good,
moment.
man.
Fun moment. And Jimmy Kimmel held it down. I mean, he's not like
did.
he's not going to set
solid,
your
man.
heart on fire, especially when you
Yeah.
have someone like John Mulaney sitting there, who a lot of people are like, that's the right guy. But I feel like he's got the polish to pull it off, and a lot of people can't make those sort of mid jokes work, and he can kind of play him off with the right level. Like he can come out and be a little bit acerbic, and it doesn't seem like, who are you?
Yeah.
Right.
Because he's built relationships with so many stars the way that he handles his talk show. I think there's a lot of sort of showbiz love for him.
Speaking of him, man, I'm really sorry to hear the Olivia Munn news. I hope that she
that's awful.
recovers super soon. It's terrible.
Talk about John
Diagnosed with
Mulaney,
cancer.
the back and forth. So many people are in his personal life or in their personal lives on social media in a way that parasocial shit. People got really attached to the idea that he was this little teddy bear person. And when he started having rehab and divorce, and people like
they turned on him.
Isn't that weird though? Those fans that are
Turned
like
on him hard.
like the purity test. That's I've never had that attitude towards people I follow.
I don't know. He's a human being, man. Like
I know. Like doing bad things, I get. Like having a drug relapse and a failed marriage, that's not like a moral failing.
Right,
That's like the kind
right.
of shit that could happen to anybody and is happening to everybody.
And to fall into the arms of Olivia Munn is not an L, my friends.
Right.
I don't know.
And the back and forth about whether, did he leave her? And it's like, there's no evidence of that. People are just being, whatever. But yeah, it's sad to hear about her diagnosis. And
man. Quick recovery, Olivia.
Yes. All right. Well, do we have anything else to say about Young Oscars? I'm trying to think. I do also think I'm glad that the Billie Eilish song won. I'm glad that I'm Just Ken got to have the cool moment of the night, because it was just a moment. It was like you said, Ronald. It was like that was Gosling's kind of reward for being this guy who's game for anything. But I think that I feel like the right song won. I've heard people say the wrong song won. I don't agree. I feel like the Billie Eilish song is so beautiful, and there's a delicate quality to it, and every time I hear it, I kind of go, oh yeah. Even more than the movie, I like those two songs.
Yeah, totally.
Phineas and Billie Eilish are aliens. I don't understand how they're able to make the quality of songs that they make at the quickness that they're able to produce. I mean, people make these hits every couple years, like typical musicians.
Yeah.
Billy and Phineas are like pumping them out every year.
And there's really not anybody else like them on the pop landscape,
Nobody, man.
When she first came out, I wanted to slot her into a certain kind of pop star role that I quickly was like, oh nope, that's not it for this person. There is like a weird, an ethereal quality, and like the way she's so quiet I don't know. That performance was really powerful, and yet it also felt like it was going to fall apart at almost any moment. And I don't know how certain performers managed to pull that one off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
man.
amazing.
She is.
It's a great performance for sure.
But
All right, well, we'll take us into if Hollywood is our god, Steve. Some might say that our god could be compared to other things.
Like a bullet,
You know,
maybe.
just off the top of your head, that feels like a fruitful analogy. Let's explore this.
If only one of us had picked a movie.
I know. It would really tie
At
it
least
together.
carrying that moniker. Yeah. Yeah. So let's go over to our required viewing. This was my pick from last week. This is a movie called God is a Bullet. Came out last year, 2023. This is a 2 hour and 36-minute long, epic, violent, cult, revenge thriller.
Yeah.
Starring, like I mentioned last week, really what pulled me to it
Crazy cast.
was Micah Monroe. I mean, I love her. She's been great in so many things, and she's great.
Yeah.
I think she's great in this.
she is.
Yeah, and I mentioned like Nikolai Coster-Waldau. Is that his name? I can't remember. I said it last
Nikolai
time.
Coster-Waldau. Yes.
Come on now, Jamie Lannister.
Yes.
For everyone else, January Jones, Jamie Foxx.
Yeah.
Who else? Ethan Suplee, Jonathan Tucker, Brendan Sexton.
Our boy Jonathan Tucker,
our boy,
friend of the show.
Friend of the show. Yeah, just a really cool, big, eclectic kind of cast of people that you definitely recognize from a lot of things, if not, that having their moments as stars on certain things.
Right.
Like, Nikolai was in Game of Thrones, and January was in Mad Men, and they've had moments on huge TV shows or big movie platforms. But I don't know, this was just one that like always kind of intrigued me. It was always kind of floating around. Should I watch it? Should I not? A couple people that I had followed last year, like critics online, had it like honorable mentions for it at the end of the year. And honestly, the other thing that really kind of found interesting was that it was directed by Nick Cassavetes, who has a pretty what's the proper word, like
eclectic.
A
journeyman. He's kind of a journeyman director,
all over the place kind of movie filmography.
Yeah, well, I think that's what you call a journeyman director, when it's like they take the gig, they get the project going, they don't really have a style that you associate with them, they don't really have a genre. Right. It's not like he can't get stars to be in his movies. I haven't looked at box office for a guy like that to see like how he hangs around, but somehow he manages to put projects together every few years or something. So there's something going on there. But yeah, it is one of those, how did I not hear more about this movie when you see the cast? You know what I mean? It's one of those that seems bigger than it must have been, because it slipped by. And I don't know if I heard a little bit about this, but actually not much.
Had you heard of it, Ronald, at all, or
no?
Never heard of it. Okay.
It's funny. I saw a still of Jamie Foxx's skin.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't know what the movie was associated with. I thought that like it was some Netflix movie or something that I made. Like, did I miss something? Like, I didn't.
How did you read into that as that skin condition? Because as someone with vitiligo, it's most pronounced on my hands. It's just coming up in other spots.
Yeah.
I was like, is that supposed to be vitiligo? Because if so, the makeup, it looked like makeup. Like they didn't do a good job of making it look like skin. But then I thought, is he a guy who just got curious tattoos? Because like, did he put? Is that? And then I thought, are we supposed to? He has like he's missing a hand. So then it made me think, did he have some kind of injury? And that's like supposed to be like his skin healed up and the scars didn't return to the natural tone. I just didn't know how we were supposed to read into that. But as a representation of vitiligo, I was like, they could have done a better job with the makeup if that's what that's supposed to be. But I didn't know if we were supposed to know. Did you have an opinion about what was going on with his kind of white splotches all over his face and skin?
I did not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen like what's her name? That model that her skin's kind of like that.
Yeah, well, she's got vitiligo. I mean, that's
pretty, yeah. But I guess it looks kind of similar to Jamie Foxx's bird. His was just completely white though, which
it was as though they put paint and it just looked like it was on his skin. So it didn't look like like
I
the
get what
lack
you're
of
saying.
pigment. I just
Yeah.
wondered, was that just a makeup that was supposed to be the lack of pigment, and then our cameras, our resolution is too good for something like that to trick us? Because it seems like a character choice they would go with in this kind of movie, is like everybody's got to be so kind of like
Yeah. So
freaky and fucked
unique.
up to say
Yeah.
like, oh, let's do Jamie Foxx with vitiligo,
Because the vitiligo combined with the hook,
with
combined
everything,
with the
right?
it's
Right, and he's a
like,
tattoo artist.
and you're a tattoo artist, and you
Just got to keep
and you
piling it on. It's like
yeah, and you like to roll coins. And
everybody went around the it's like one of the Key and Peele skits. It's like everybody went around the table, like you pick something.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
And what? And what?
Yeah.
Oh, he's got a hook, and he's a tattoo artist, and he
Yeah.
rolls coins. Like, let's just build this guy out. I love it.
Good God. Yeah, it was crazy sauce.
What did you guys? Well, I mean, what did you guys think of the movie overall?
I could easily have thought this was one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life, but something worked about this movie that I was just like, you know what it is? It feels like if this is based on a true story, Jesus Christ. I mean,
I think it's really fishy. The true story thing is
Okay.
very, like, if you look at what it says at the end, it's like
Okay.
elements of this story were pulled from things that have been said to have happened.
Right.
But it might be that it's trying to get away from legal problems. I don't know. But it
Yes.
seems like it's one of those. I would take that with a whole shaker of salt. Yeah.
Well, it just makes me think about this whole idea. Like people are very scared of the rapper Lil Nas X and his worship of the devil. This version is like what people are really afraid of. This like not a gay man dancing with the devil. It's like this version of Satanism that's in this movie is the one that people are really afraid of. The ones that are like in Netflix documentaries and stuff.
But like
So,
the
like,
Satanic Panic version of like,
yeah,
you know what they
it's just
reminded me
like-
of? If you've ever seen like a Death Wish movie or that kind of movie,
Yeah.
like, you know how street gangs act in those
Yes.
movies? Just like,
Yes.
just like amoral animals that are going
Yes.
around like knocking old ladies down and
Yep.
having their way with them and stuff. And I feel like the evil gang felt like that. Like they're just so evil. Like everything about them was just scummy and rotten and evil.
Yeah.
And you got some interesting actors in there, so some of it worked on like a scene by scene level, and like this movie's crazy kind of level.
Yeah.
But I have a thing with that kind of subject matter where it's like, if you're going to have like sexual assault and you're going to have this kind of abuse and trauma and stuff, there's two ways you can handle it in a movie. You can either earn it by treating it seriously with the weight that it should have,
Yeah,
and
for
think
sure,
about
for
the
sure.
perspective of it, or you can go like full exploitation route and go like
Yeah.
B-movie schlock. And this movie almost like was
Dude.
like in both worlds.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a tough thing to do, to expect us to care about the real human emotions of characters, even if the acting is good. Or at least if the actors are bringing personal charm to it. Because I do think that Nikolai and Micah,
Yeah.
they did bring like they elevated this sometimes
for
very
sure.
on the nose kind of script and made some of their moments work. And in fact, the closing moments of the movie that really have you dealing with like their friendship. You know what, I was calling this movie, oh, they should have called this movie The Young Woman with the Neck Tattoo. Because it was sort of, a sideways, a girl with the dragon tattoo kind of thing, where the real hook, if you're going to get hooked into it, is the unlikely sort of, not just partnership, but sort of by the end, like real love for each other that these two characters have that go on this journey. And it reminded me of the characters in Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, but it's like a pulpier version. And so I kind of think this movie either wanted to be more like moody and more of a character study, or it wanted to be more like Mad Max kind of going on against this gang. And I felt like the tonal bumpiness made me think, as I often think when a movie's 2.5 hours, I was like, oh, is there like a secret like 90-minute version of this movie that would be like a blast, whether it was a pleasant, we can talk about how unpleasant some of the stuff that happens in this movie is, separately, but just as far as like, if that was clearly the intention, was to take you there and be unpleasant, this puts this movie in that kind of category of like not so violent movies. Where, just the punches to the face. I'm very sensitive to that punch to the face where it looks like it breaks your nose and blood's coming out everywhere. That happens to Micah too many times in this movie, man. That was
like,
upsetting me.
Smashing her head into things. Like there's a lot of like
so violent. Yeah.
Micah's selling it like it looks
she's doing a great job.
Visceral, like it.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, there's like a point where like that particular hit that you're talking about, it's like I had like an
Makes your
echo
head
in my
hurt
head.
watching it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes your head hurt. And then she's like trying to catch her breath while blood is
Holding
still
her
coming.
nose. Yeah. I
Yeah,
know.
it just
It's
God,
tough.
man, it's so really well. I think I kind of feel the way you feel about her. Like everything she's in, she brings it. And
Yeah, she's
Nikolai,
really
you
good.
know, for whatever problem we had with his accent
Oh,
kind
I
of
didn't even
going,
really have a problem with it. I just think there were a couple moments where it slipped into that
oh yeah,
it's like he's from Anytown, USA. Like it's
yeah,
one of those
for
aspects
sure.
of the movie that's just not very developed. But I love how he looked so much like Gary Oldman in the Christopher Nolan Batman films. And I
Yes.
love that
Yes.
performance. And I was like, okay, this is just like Jim Gordon on a side mission.
That's true, man.
I liked it.
No.
I liked it a lot. I thought that there were just it felt like a video game like that. It felt like they were
Yeah.
going, but I think the torturing was bothering me. The stacking up things, like you can't have sexual assault and then stitching somebody's mouth and then stabbing them in the chest with a card and then stabbing them in the side. It's just like
And then the
what
domestic violence of between what's his name and January Jones was maybe the most
Yeah.
gruesome.
what kind of abuse that was like. And he was like, and he's not a small guy. He's like pounding her head and she can't defend her. It's just like, what is this?
That's kind of like I think John was getting at it before, and I think that's would probably be my biggest. I actually thought I liked this movie quite a bit.
Me
Like
too.
I did, but I did feel like
I hate that I like this so much.
it felt a lot like and I guess like Cassavetes, that whole like I think he's got like a pull towards that character driven or like more of an art house kind of like look to some of his movies. Like I specifically thinking about like Alpha Dog has
Mhm.
that in it a lot, and which I really like that movie too. But I think that kind of like indecision of like what this movie was going to be, I think is what obviously pushes it to 2 hours and 36 minutes, which it has no need to be at all. And I feel like honestly, like the best part of the most like exciting part of the movie was like the whole like rescue piece.
Yeah.
Like if that was like tighter or really kind of focused more on that, because that's really kind of where everything hits and gels, and that's like it's just propulsive, at that point. Um, and not that I don't like all the character stuff, because again, I think they're especially the two leads, like they're really good in the movie. And and even the people that are in the cult, like I think they're all like just completely horrible and like just
I mean, if you're
dirty
gonna
and
play those
grimy.
kind of
Yeah.
scumbags, yeah, it's like it's massive scumbag. Like they all pull it off
Yeah, like it's
in a
just
kind of
dialed
scary
up.
way. Like Ethan Suplee is kind of scary.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
Yes.
Like I within 10 minutes of watching the movie, you have a scene where they're like stealing a kid at a shopping center, which is frightening.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
frightening.
and even the music it's set to, and it's like there's no dialogue. That was horrible. And then the next 5 minutes, you're seeing what happens to his ex-wife and their the daughter.
Mhm.
Like it's those people are scary, like very scary.
Yeah.
And that happens in the first 10 minutes of the movie. So I like that. I like the introduction and immediately to know that like this is a force, and like the idea of like can he match that, like how far is he willing to go, like that revenge plot really kind of is where I kick in and what kind of pulled me to this movie. But no,
I
that was
also want
neat.
to give it credit, Steve, for in that last hour or so. I think that they did a pretty good job with, and because I may not have liked this movie, like, and I might have even issues with it on a certain level, but also thinking like I'm always interested in this kind of movie, these kind of
Yeah.
batshit movies. Like the movie that
Yeah.
made me think of, not that it's like it at all, and I actually think The Counselor, the Ridley Scott film, is a better movie, but it's also crazy. And it's
Yeah.
like got violence and like awful things happening, and you have to wonder what's the point of the way all the violence is kind of stacking up. But this also kind of follows almost like a noir, like a road movie,
Yeah.
revenge kind of story, like you're talking about. So what I actually thought the movie did a great job with was the part where they're going too far
Right.
and the movie doesn't really stop and comment on it and like make it seem like, see, I told. There's no like cute dialogue around like,
Yeah.
this is the moment that you've crossed the line. There was it was just
too
you
far to
feel
come
it.
back. Yeah.
You feel it, and then like therefore when you get to sort of the end of the film and you're more looking at their mental state and how maybe they're the only two that kind of understand each other, I felt like I bought that more than I would have expected to. When I was, if you told me in the first half, the last half of this movie, the main thing you're going to care about is the status of their friendship, sort of,
Yeah.
and like, can they save each other from the darkness that they're jumping into?
Exactly.
Yeah.
As much as saving the daughter is important, it's less involving to you emotionally somehow in the last part of the movie, because I feel like they do a smart job of like, let's get the daughter out of there and then let's deal with like the fallout with these characters. I bought that more than I expected to. Like, so in some ways I think that it worked on me, and I do think sometimes it's actors and tone that might pile up and work on you. But like, I think that stuff was more effective than I would have expected it to be. I did want to the as far as like the gangs, the kind of craziness of the gang, though, I do think that some of the some of the stuff that I was thinking about most when watching this movie, especially when I was talking to you guys, or getting ready to talk to you guys, was Jonathan Tucker. Like, whatever you want to say about this movie and this kind of thing, he's a perfect example of why I think actors do this kind of thing, because like, he's never gotten to play this kind of weird, flamboyant, like whiny, crazy, weaselly asshole. I mean, you keep thinking, I thought he was about to get killed about 18 times in this movie before it
So
actually
true.
happens. And I think that like, that must be fun for an actor like Jonathan Tucker, who maybe he didn't get to be in like the Scorsese crime epic or the Ridley Scott movie or whatever. Maybe that'll still come for him, but you still see this kind of part and go, oh, this is like meaty in a weird, sweaty, muscular way that I think must be fun for the performers to pull off, even like we said, even though it's like very unpleasant material. What do you guys think of Jonathan Tucker as Errol?
I enjoyed him. It was crazy watching him kind of flail around when he got pressed by the group.
Yeah.
It's like, what did he do wrong? I can't figure out what he did wrong either. Like, I think because he's a weasel and he's like a suburban kid that came to this gang.
Well, I guess he
Like,
owns that place that they're in,
yeah.
but it's like, it's a little unclear until you see where he's living that he's actually pretty powerful,
Yeah.
I guess that's why they don't just kill him, is because he has some right to kind of yell at them. But when Ethan Suplee showed up, I thought the power dynamic was different than what it really was. Like, I thought he was about to crack heads, but he was just a henchman kind of. Anyway, interesting and all, fun in that way that like a sweaty late Oliver Stone movie can be, where it's just a lot of overacting, a lot of, but towards this kind of heightened mood, like, of the intensity that you're kind of talking about, Steve.
Yeah, my big takeaway with Jonathan Tucker is just like, why don't I see more Jonathan Tucker?
Right.
Yeah.
Like I actually, when I was watching it, I pulled up his IMDb and I was like, what has he got going on?
Right.
And like,
what's he doing now?
This is his last credit and all he has. Like, he doesn't have any upcoming, titles, or like, he had a podcast series last year called the Montauk Caves, a TV miniseries called Echoes, and he finished out Westworld. But I mean, well, Westworld finished out. He was on Westworld.
Right.
But like, like this
finished it.
right. Yeah. This is like the last feature that he has on his IMDb. Like, what is going on, Jonathan? Maybe we should have him on a podcast again and just let's get a temperature check on him and see what's going on.
Yeah, man.
The Tucker temp.
The Tucker temp.
He did promise us crab cake. So
yeah. And that can't have been just a nice thing to say to a bunch of guys that were in Baltimore, right?
Never. No one would do that.
He would never.
Yeah. I thought it was a great pick, man. Like, I thought that I was gonna dislike this movie. Well,
that's a win. That's a win for me.
It was so weird and
especially after my last weird pick.
Yeah,
I feel like it set you back again. It was like, oh, but I actually like this one. Good.
I like this one.
I'd rather watch something weird and off-putting and interesting and full of actors and have more to talk about than just a nice movie. But nice movies are good.
For sure.
For this feature, I think interesting beats nice. In my estimation.
All right.
Well, I'm up next, and I guess I'll double back around to Oscar talk because when this week when the non uh, level-headed people on Twitter. I don't know if you guys are still popping in on Twitter, but there's the film Twitter folks. There's a lot of division about
Yeah,
every movie topic, and there was a
of course.
flashpoint of those things around the Oscar discourse, and so there was a lot of really vitriolic discourse out there.
Mm.
And someone that I follow on Twitter said that the Twitter discourse around movies in the Oscars was giving us a preview of election year discourse and election like the
Hmm.
work, you know,
Oh
the weird
wow.
division over small differences and weird people just raring to argue about something they love that they, if you don't love it just like them, then you're their enemy. and
Right.
um
Which is
and so we
wild.
were kind of, and I sort of agreed with what they were saying, that is it felt like people were firing up their you know their well, what I said was
Tiki
firing up,
torches.
what I said
Yeah,
was
so
firing
getting
up,
out their pitchforks.
I said firing up the jacuzzi full of vomit early, but yes, much nicer to say firing up your torches. It's easier image to process. But it made me think about the fact that we are in an election year. And so I looked to my list, and there's a film that I have long wanted to watch. I think I may have seen this once when I was a young man and it was on television. But we're going back in time to 1957 for a political satire that is about like a drifter who is sort of plucked from obscurity by I think it's a radio producer when she meets him and thinks that he's got like a certain kind of charm that people might like on the air, and this drifter becomes famous and powerful and takes his fame and uses it as a backdoor into a political career. And it's a satire that people frequently talk about, especially in our recent age, where someone
Oh yeah,
might
yeah.
go from being a reality show host to being president. So A Face in the Crowd, the movie that was Andy Griffith's first movie from 1957, written by Bud Schulberg, who wrote On the Waterfront, the Brando film, and directed
Wow.
by Elia Kazan, who directed that movie, amongst other things. If you look at Elia Kazan's resume, you'll see a lot of classic films. Anyway, this is a movie that I know is supposed to be great, and I remember watching enough of it to see that it was interesting and great. And also, it's like Andy Griffith before, like a couple of years after this is when he would appear on television and start to develop his kind of homespun Andy Griffith
Mm.
character, or Sheriff Andy Taylor was not out there yet. This was when he was just an actor who had been in I think he was known for like a theatrical career, No Time for Sergeants, I believe, was the play that he was known for. Anyway, so this will be a fun opportunity to see like a star before their persona is forged. So he's just
Right.
appearing in this as an actor, but also it's a story that when you hear about the broad strokes of it, it sounds like a really smart political satire that is relevant perhaps to
Oh,
our
cool.
present day. So A Face in the Crowd from 1957. It's out there to be rented. I didn't see anybody that's playing it that's just part of a regular subscription, but I think this is kind of a classic film that people will refer to a lot. So it might be worth the
Cool.
rental fee. Face in the Crowd.
Face in the crowd. I'm excited. I've never heard of it, and I'll watch the hell out of it.
Sounds good. Yeah, I was checking. Yeah, it's just like it's just rental everywhere. No streaming.
Rental everywhere.
I'm just looking at the poster. The tagline on the poster it says power. He loved it. He took it raw in big gulpfuls. He liked the taste, the way it mixed with the bourbon and the sin in his blood.
Damn.
Bud Schulberg's A Face in the Crowd. So yeah,
Oh my god.
they knew how to write a tagline back then.
Yeah, holy moly guacamole. That was intense.
So Ronald, our next feature is Manhunt, the series on the Apple TV Plus. You were the one who mentioned actually both episodes, the first two episodes of this show drop today, the day that this podcast comes out, March 15th. That is. So we had a chance to preview them, so we've seen them a little bit in advance. What made this show cross your path, and that made you think of it as a possible topic for the show?
I thought it was interesting that it was like of course about the murder of Lincoln, but
Yeah.
it's done more like a murder mystery. I'd never
Mhm.
thought about that approach, like a murder mystery, and because of that, some of the subsequent motivations that may have sparked his assassination. I mean, it becomes very clear even from the trailer why it became so hard to find this man, John Wilkes Booth.
Right.
But some of the intricacies of it, and I don't know how deep the research went in this. It seems really interesting just how elusive he was. So yeah, that's what kind of brought it to my attention. What I was very skeptical about, I mean, yeah, I'm a black guy. I was
I
like,
know how you feel about period pieces, so I was
Yeah.
thinking about you when I was watching these 2
how
episodes.
much are they going to approach? Because period pieces can do two things. It's kind of like the whole Shogun thing. You can make a choice. You could be like, are we going to acknowledge racism but not put the N-word in it?
Right.
Or are we going to do all of it together? Which is, I feel like for accuracy's sake, maybe that works more, just so people know how it felt for people back then. But this combines a lot of it. I mean, I felt like Apple's really gone for it, like the feel of that time. How, fresh off of slaves being freed, how people were resistant to the idea of it. I mean, to say
Like
the very
openly
least.
resistant.
Openly
Like
resistant.
to a person's face, meeting somebody.
Yes.
And like
And
being
going to states
openly
for-
like mad at them that they're free. Like that's
Yeah.
what you're catching in this show.
It's a
that's
very
Yeah.
weird, and then going to free states and trying to do that too. Like, it's just like, what?
Right.
Well, being like, oh,
It's-
it's really too bad I can't own you, and like that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Where it's just like,
Yes.
holy shit, this is
Yeah.
this is cold. I think that the main thing I took from that, Ronald, that I had never thought about before, and I think the show really makes it clear. And I think focusing on Edward Stanton, played by Tobias Menzies, who's great in this, honestly.
He's really
Like,
good.
if you love him and you've kind of wished for him to have a vaguely heroic character that you can actually hang in there with,
Like a lead, yeah.
like a competent lead. He's frequently plays sort of like the guys that get shunted off to the side or whatever.
Yeah.
Seeing the way he has to consider like that this could be a new war. Like they've just made peace.
Yeah.
They've just restored union to the United States, to say like, what if this is a sign that peace is so fragile that it won't hold?
Yeah,
And
it's
to be
breaking.
the sort of point man for that, that's something I never really had thought about, like in terms of what it must have felt like to try to figure out what was going on. And then that question of, is the Confederacy still actively acting and bankrolling this? That's like the question that's the real hook.
Yeah.
I think, of the kind of mystery that you're talking about, because we obviously know who did it and we kind of see what they're doing, but watching how they start to, even in the first 2 episodes, they're starting to draw a little bit of a circle around how they might find out, or find this person who a lot of people want to protect. A lot of people are proud of what he did and think that it's, that very disunion that is a frightening thing for the government to ponder. Like there's people that want that. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I feel
they're
like
pulling him closer.
just how
Yeah.
fragile it all was and fragile it
Yeah.
all is. We feel that today. It's interesting to realize, yes, the war had been won. Lincoln had been killed, this symbol of our country that so many people found valuable, and it was already something that was being potentially torn down. I think that catching history in that moment is an interesting place to set the story, but it's an interesting little piece of the story to focus on.
Yeah, for sure, man. What'd you think, Steve?
It's interesting. Like I actually, for a second, I thought I didn't watch the second episode, but I was just checking and I did. I was like, I watched it so quick when you said, "Hey, let's watch these." I was like, did I watch both? I forgot.
Right.
I don't know. I feel like I'm definitely interested in continuing the show. I feel like I don't want to. I don't know. I don't know if this is a spoiler. It's not intended. Like the show starts off with the assassination, right? So basically,
Yeah.
that's the jumping point.
Yeah.
I feel like through 2 episodes, I don't personally know if that was the right decision. I feel like like when you said let's check it out, I watched the trailer and I felt like the like the hunt, the chase, the trying to find the kill, like it really plays up. Yeah, the manhunt, I think is what you call it. The trailer really plays that up, and I feel like
I
the
didn't think much about that title, but they're hunting for a man.
That's what it is. God damn,
Holy
they're so smart
shit.
at Apple. I guess what I'm trying to say is like I feel like starting it like that instead of building up to it and then letting the chase happen on the back half because it's only 7 episodes.
Right.
Yeah.
But like for something that took 12 days in real life to be 7 episodes of television, it's like maybe you have something going on before that, like the build to the assassination.
Like maybe
Yeah.
just an episode or something where
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
that
To
ends
kinda-
with the assassination rather than because I kind of know what you mean. The flashback structure is like
That's
my
it.
least the thing that
That's-
works for me
that's
the
it.
least about the show is the jumping
Yes.
back and forth.
Yes.
I kind of was thinking if they did this linearly, I did the
Yes.
math in my head. Would I like this better if they did it linearly, and I think I would.
Me
Yes.
too.
But I also think it would have done the thing you're talking about, which meant we would have had an episode of Lincoln scenes up front, at least the most of an episode to have like
Yeah.
what's happening in the country. Because I got a little not confused, but just like exasperated with the 10 minutes before the assassination, 3 days after these. Like sometimes when
Right.
that just feels random, it makes me think there's not really like a rhyme or a reason to it. Like, why are we seeing flashbacks? Why is it
Yeah.
structured this way? You know, other than just like narrative convenience to say we're going to start with a bang, and which is what they did.
And I think that takes away like any sense of dread going into the event.
Yeah.
You know, like,
It
and I think
does.
that if that was used as a building point when it happens, like the chase, you know, the moment that like really is what the show is probably getting at or getting
Yes.
to. I feel like if you did that over like 4 or 5 episodes instead of literally 7 with these dramatic flashbacks building out the moments before, I don't know, just something about that just feels like, I don't know, maybe I hope I'm wrong, maybe as we watch more,
Right.
but like I don't like 5 more episodes of like the tension being drawn out.
Yeah.
That's a tall order, I think.
Especially
But-
if they're going to try to dip back into more flashbacks with Lincoln
Right.
to give us
Yes.
juice, because that feels like an odd. It makes that performance as Lincoln feel even more kind of like separate from the rest of the
Yeah.
show.
And
Which
he's
already-
great.
It is.
Yeah, like,
it's like
he's
it takes you like
incredible.
a scene to grasp.
He's so
it,
good. Yeah.
But then once you realize, like for me, it was like once I realized who I'm watching and what
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
bringing to
Yeah.
it, I was just like, I want to be charmed by this guy, and maybe I want to hang out with him a little bit longer. So it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like a kind of
Yeah.
sketch impression, you know, which is not what
Yeah.
he's doing, but you know what I mean? When you just get a little dose, it feels
Yeah.
like this is like like a concentrated dose of Lincoln being charming. I mean, then
Yeah.
you go back to a story where it's like the whole point is that we're about to watch him get killed.
Yeah.
I do think the way that
Exactly.
they staged the assassination was really effective.
Yes.
You know, by hanging out with John Wilkes Booth and seeing like his view, and
The curtain. Yeah.
you're sitting there almost thinking, is he going to chicken out? I hope he chickens out. You know, like in that moment, you feel the decision open to him not to do it.
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
you realize how easy it was to get close to him, and then it's over. Like it's one little shot, and then I feel like I've seen that moment in my mind so many times that seeing it depicted, honestly, I guess I've just seen photos or drawings
Yes. The
of
drawing.
actually what it looked like. Because
Sure.
do you know what I mean? I felt like I'd
Yeah.
seen it in my mind, and it felt like it was like a famous moment from Shakespeare or something like that I was watching, because I know that moment. I know that I know what he screams, and I know that he breaks his
Yeah.
leg, and I know that he kind of runs off while the crowd is still shocked and all
Right.
that stuff, you know.
The dread that you're talking about, the dread you're getting at, and the dread you're getting at, John, and the dread that Steve was talking about earlier. And it's, you have to understand, listeners, that when you watch someone get their brains blown out, it's weird to watch that, and the way that they handled it, and him being in like beds, you know, the doctors being bedside, the blood being on and the sounds that it's
Yeah.
making as they're
Like the
like,
squishing sounds when they move his
squishing
head.
sou-
Yeah,
yeah.
that was grim.
Then to go from that to like hearing the squishing sounds, 2 seconds later, he's upright, alive, and talking to, you know, people in his political circle is a jarring thing to take in.
Did I ever tell you about the little girl
Yeah,
with
it's
the
like,
raisins?
what?
You know, and he's like this super charming uncle.
Yeah.
That's the thing that like is kind of messing me up a little bit.
Disjointed.
I think.
It's jarring, man.
Yeah, it's very jarring, disjointed. I feel like
Yeah.
like the linear. Yeah, and like Lincoln Ladder is great, and I love him, and I like seeing him in anything.
Mm.
Yeah, how much?
Hamish, plays Lincoln. Sorry.
Well, no, I just mean like people on the show may know we love him from
Yeah.
Midnight Mass and
Midnight
many other
Mass.
things. But
was
he's
so
he's
good
such
at
a,
Midnight
such a
Mass.
great guy. I loved him in Legion too. He was really good on that show.
Oh, yeah.
I've never watched Legion. I watched one episode and then I never.
I feel like it's a great show, but it's wackadoo. I mean,
It looks
it's the fun
wackadoo.
kind of crazy, but it's definitely
Okay.
crazy.
Yeah.
Chicken.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe again, like I'm definitely going to continue watching the show because I mean,
Yeah.
I like the cast and it's an intriguing idea for a series. But
To structure it like a procedural, this thing from history that we know is
Yeah.
it's a smart idea.
Wow.
yes, absolutely. Like, what was the one? I don't think many people even watched it. I think we talked about it briefly on the podcast, but it was the Pale Blue Eye. Did you
Oh,
guys watch
is that
that?
the one about
Yeah.
John Brown?
Yeah, with Christian Bale, the
Oh no,
Edgar
that's
Allan
the one
Poe.
that was
No,
oh yeah,
the
that's the one that was Poe, right? Yeah.
the Poe story that was on Netflix
Yeah.
like last fall.
I never watched it. I remember
Same kind of
hearing it.
thing. Like it's like, you know,
Oh.
procedural detective, you know, thing with this historical kind of story, which I thought, I mean, I actually quite like that quite a bit.
One thing I want to mention about Manhunt that it took me a minute to realize who I was looking at. I did not recognize Glenn Morshower as Andrew Johnson until I was like, who is that? Because I'm not used to seeing him with hair on his head. But I was like, I know I love this actor. He's always good. I remember I first noticed him on 24 years ago. But Glenn Morshower is one of those that guy character actors who's like always good, but he doesn't do one kind of thing, or he kind of does one kind of thing. I don't know. Look at what he's played and what he's done. But I think he's doing some really good work as Andrew Johnson, who's honestly one of the more interesting characters because there's a morally ambiguous quality to him, because as you're sorting out the mystery and you're wondering if there are factions within the government that might have supported this attempt, the idea that the guy who's now president, who was vice president, he might be part of it. It's
Right.
That's
like, and
nuts.
also like as a political enemy potentially of Lincoln was known for working with and running with and like bringing people into his inner circle that he didn't agree with. And so the notion that he could have had, some kind of anyway, that Andrew Johnson is not like in the clear as far as the investigators are considered. I think
Right.
that Glenn Morshower does a great job of playing that kind of, seems like a good man on a certain level, but also seems like he could be a player and part of this attempt to maybe overthrow the government. It's I don't know, it's an interesting performance. And then I think
Yeah,
Larry
for sure.
Pine, who plays the Seward, is another actor that I didn't recognize in this movie or in this show until I looked him up, and I was like, oh yeah, that guy. But like, I think that there's some good character turns in this. So if that's another fun part of this show, if you're as Steve, if you're disjointed, if you're feeling a little put out by the structure of it, and I kind of was too, you might still enjoy that's Patton Oswalt with a big beard.
Right.
It's Matt Walsh. From
Don't forget
Dune.
Patton. Yeah.
Yeah.
and like a lot
Patton
of great
saying
great
lickety
things.
split. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, this is the Patton I love.
Yeah.
Lickety split. Yeah, man.
Well,
All right.
that's pretty much a show, right?
Anything else you guys saw? You want to mention before we wrap it up?
No, I don't think so.
I gotta admit to I watched I can't remember if it was on, is it on Hulu? The Ricky Stenicki.
Yeah. Oh, how is it?
I liked it, man. I'm a mark for a dumb R-rated comedy. Like,
Okay, now is this not a movie? I just watched the trailer, and then I
Mhm.
heard someone say it was kind of funny. Is this
Mhm.
not a movie that in the '90s would have had like a few weeks of everybody talking
Yes.
about it and quoting?
Yeah.
I mean,
and it would probably have a sequel greenlit already.
right? I mean, like it's a
honestly,
Farrelly brothers, or it's one of the Farrelly
one of
brothers,
them. It's
right?
Peter Farrelly. Yeah.
So I mean, that's a pretty sure hand to have on your kind of throwback
Yeah.
comedy like this. I don't know. I saw it and I was like, yeah, this just is the wrong era somehow for this movie. And I could totally see it being funny with that cast and with that concept, which is it's such a high concept thing, but it also seems like the kind of thing that would lead to gags that would be pretty funny. Him pissing his pants and them seeing it and him saying, oh, it's not what you think. It's just piss.
Just piss.
It's like the John Cena thing. It's like, we like him now. I like to see how game he is. I thought he was funny at the Oscars too. He's just
he's game. He's all
yeah.
He's so much fun to watch in this. I mean, interestingly enough, I think like Zac Efron's definitely probably the weak link of the movie. Like, which I thought he was great in Iron Claw, and like he's been in his fair share of these kinds of comedies before. But I honestly felt like specifically like Andrew Santino.
I was about to say, how's he?
I love him, man.
I love his
so
timing.
funny. He's
so
so
dry.
funny, man. He's so
funny.
funny. But yeah, and what was the other guy's name? Jermaine Fowler.
Yeah.
Plays the other
DC's
like,
own.
right, yeah. Oh, really? I didn't know that.
It's from DC.
Okay.
Who
I
played
remember him
Urkel
in a
in
scene.
what was the movie that he was the killer? What was that movie called?
Oh, Black,
The Blackening?
The Blackening.
Yeah, he played Urkel in that.
Yeah, he was Urkel.
He's so good. But yeah, I thought this movie was very funny. I mean, it's so stupid and it's like super high concept, but yeah, William H. Macy's in it, having fun, you know.
Oh wow.
But yeah, Cena is like
Mm.
kind of the price of admission here. Like he's just like all in, being so dumb and fun, and yeah, honestly, like you saying like '90s, early 2000s, like this is that kind of comedy. It's and I just double check. It's actually Amazon Prime, is what it's
Right.
on. But
Yes.
yeah, I would say go ahead and watch that if you like those kinds of comedies and you're not you're not looking for anything crazy, but just kind of like right down the line, late '90s, early 2000s R comedy
Mm.
with a lot of funny people in it. You know, like it's just it really works. I thought, but I found myself laughing more than I thought I would simply off the trailer. But um, yeah, that's on Amazon Prime right now.
I'll just throw out there that I watched Last Voyage of the Demeter finally, which is also on Amazon. Or I guess maybe it's on Paramount and you can watch it on Amazon. Anyway, I think that's where I saw all the Ricky Stenicki ads was
Oh yeah,
Okay.
when I was watching Mr. and Mrs. Smith and when I was watching Last Voyage of the
Last
Demeter.
Voyage. Yeah,
But I don't know. I think this is one of those movies that Last Voyage of the Demeter that is where it's like I knew at the time that if this movie was really some great gem, I would have heard that buzz from some of my people that see everything that are more, into this kind of genre thing. But I also knew that if it totally stunk, I would have heard that buzz too.
Right,
And I
right,
never
right.
heard either bits of those buzz. And watching it, it's kind of exactly that.
right,
There is
exactly.
like a better, more fun version of this concept where they have the same cast and the same production value. I mean, it's a cool movie. It's a great if you're going to look for like a new Dracula story to tell. The little chapter that doesn't really get told is his journey from across the sea or from elsewhere in Europe, from Transylvania basically to London, where most of Dracula takes place. Is sort of like that's a cool little part of the story.
Yeah,
That's like just a chapter, and you hear about the ship's log, and you hear about like you get the idea that there was a ship full of people and there is no people left when the ship makes it to land.
Mm.
That's a scary idea. I
yeah,
think
It
the
is.
movie is a little too dry in a way. Like I kind of liked how straight the movie played it, but then there's a point where it's like this is a little too dry. It wasn't giving me like it made. I kept thinking like if a Sam Raimi or somebody like that had this concept, maybe it would have been like more of a ride and less of just kind of like it's biding time with that idea that you already have in your head, which is that no one makes it out alive. And so you start to think how could anyone survive this? And you start to see how there might be a way on or off this situation. But I don't know. It definitely never dipped into being like terrible. And it never was like cheesy or anything. I think some of the shots of the way they envision Dracula are really nicely creepy. Some of them looked a little goofy, but even that, it's like pretty much right down the middle. This movie is very much it's very much like bare minimum what it needed to be, but it's just good enough in a few spots that you can't help but say, you should probably see it if this sounds like your bag at all.
Mm.
It's not a it's the ultimate wait for it. Back when we used to have our 3-level scale of go ahead, wait
yeah,
for
yeah,
it,
yeah.
hold up. This is the ultimate wait for it. Like it's perfect if you can watch it on a streaming thing and you can kind of maybe, take a break, go get some more snacks or whatever. I think it would have been effective on a big screen, but it's a perfect sort of watch it watch it at home. You can pet your dog and go back to the movie. I don't think you will have missed much. Great cast though. And I think part of the fun really is watching a couple of these character actors get a chance to play slightly larger roles than they normally would get to. Like I never know how to say his name, David uh Dastmalchian.
Yeah, yeah.
He's pretty good in this, playing a different
That's
sort of
yeah.
character. And then also the guy from Game of Thrones who played uh uh God, now I feel like I should have this movie pulled up so I can say the actor's name. Uh 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 uh. uh. The guy, we love him on Game of Thrones. What's his name?
I know you're talking about. I'm trying to remember his
Davos
name
is,
on the
is the
show.
character's name, or Davos, Lord
Davos,
Davos.
yeah.
It is Liam Cunningham as Captain Elliot. It's fun to see him in this movie, but even he seems like he could have gotten more to do. Like he could have gotten to do a little bit more crazy stuff. But
Mm.
yeah, decent. Nice atmosphere.
Glad you finally got to check that out.
Yeah, finally did it. And that's a show. Ronald,
That is a show. Sorry, I got distracted. I got all these alerts that reviews are coming out of South by Southwest about Alex Garland's Civil War. It premiered tonight.
Oh,
Like glowing shit.
really?
Like masterpiece stuff. Like, yeah.
Fall Guy's been getting great reviews too. So that's like
that's
exciting kind of mainstream movies to me. Like
so did Roadhouse.
Oh really? Yeah, it did.
I can't wait for us to get access to that, man. You
think
you're gonna get?
I think we got a couple. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I would say fingers crossed because that platform gives us a lot of stuff. So
bless their hearts.
Let's hope they get it all. Give us all of it. If you're a platform and you're listening to the show, give us all of it.
give us all of it. We got to talk about what's the name too. Second half of Invincible, right? Like I felt like
it just came back. Yeah.
Today.
Yeah. Just started today with the day we're recording. It's the 14th. Yeah.
Oh, I should mention this. There's a documentary that I've had a chance to be part of. I did an engineering session for some voiceover stuff for this. There's a local dance teacher and acting. Well, she teaches in the acting department at the school where I teach as well. But her name's Maria Broom. She's an actress and teacher. And there's a documentary called Viva Maria that's being made about her, and they've just released a GoFundMe.
Oh wow!
Just check out the trailer. I mean, it definitely it will come across the kind of person that Maria is. And also, if you listen to the trailer, you'll hear the voiceover stuff that I engineered. It was really kind of cool. Like I just did like a session.
That's cool.
With her reading her like remembrances from her life, knowing that she was going to turn the recordings over to the documentary directors, that they could use it in the movie as like, stitch together anything they don't have interviews or whatever for. And just hearing it like in the trailer was really cool. But also I feel like this might be a really interesting documentary about a very interesting creative spirit. So look for cool. Viva Maria out there.
Viva Maria.
Very cool. All right. Reminder, next week, John, your required viewing, face in the crowd. Yeah. And movieshmovie.com is the website. You can go there to listen to past episodes and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform for upcoming episodes. We also have a youtube.com/movieshmoviepod if you'd prefer to watch and listen to your podcast. You can subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts of when the new episodes drop there as well. We will be back next week to say hey once again. As always, you made our day. Thanks.
Bye.